Welcome aboard. This is Pixelazy here with another leg in my flight around the world in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. This is Lazy Air Flight 109 with service from Yakutat, Alaska to Anchorage International Airport in Alaska. Going to release our parking brake here, and we're doing a sort of northeast takeoff out of this small coastal Alaskan town in our Cessna 172 Skyhawk, which we are taking all over the virtual planet Earth, starting from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada about 2 weeks ago, traveling through BC, and now we're traveling northbound. So we're making our way up the coast of Alaska on this bright, sunshiny, clear day. It's a Saturday morning. Got a full day off. We're going to do a really long leg today, clocked in at just over 2 hours, which means, given my meandering flight habits, probably take me closer to 3.5.
Anchorage Center Lazy Lima 109er is type Cessna Skyhawk 1 miles north of Papa Alpha Yankee Alpha. Request flight following.
Lazy Lima 109er Anchorage Center. Squawk 0725.
Got a little extra
Squawk
fuel today.
0725 Lazy Lima 109er.
Normally I fly with
109er radar contact 1 miles northwest of Papa Alpha Yankee Alpha 900 feet. Altimeter tree 0.19er.
Normally I fly with
Copy
about
Lazy Lima 109er.
50% fuel tanks full. Today that would have just put me right at the boundaries of my fuel capacity to get to Anchorage, so I cranked them up to about 70%, and we're gonna see if that can get us into Anchorage International Airport. Just gonna get some altitude here, and I'll check in when there's some more interesting sights to see. We're about 15 minutes into this flight. Yakutat is back there on that little peninsula sticking out. We're just approaching some gorgeous mountain scenery off to our right, the Alaskan coast. If I'm reading my Google Maps search correctly, that tall peak is Mount St. Elias. Never been up to Alaska, but the internet has lots of amazing photography of some of these mountain ranges. So I've been Googling some of that as I've been flying, trying not to drift off course too much. There's some low-lying clouds over the North Pacific to the east, southeast over there. And I think we're going to see a lot more of this amazing scenery as we travel up through Alaska towards Anchorage. My plane name is Pixel. My call sign is Lazy. This is leg 10 of a trip around the world in Microsoft Flight Simulator. I've been logging all those flights on both YouTube, on this channel, and at pixelazy.ca, pixelazy.ca, with some screenshots and some commentary. My goal is, over the next months or years, when we can't travel because of the pandemic, to travel virtually. Go around the world in a simulation of planet Earth, which is Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020, just released a couple weeks ago. And if you have powerful enough computer to run it. I would encourage you to run out and buy this game, download it. I got mine off Steam. You need a pretty powerful machine to render this, but apparently there's multiple petabytes of data, all generated from Bing Maps, from topographical data, real-time weather information, run through an artificial intelligence cloud computer system, an algorithm that updates and creates as close to representation of what the real world would be like as anything we've been able to create as a society to date, which lets me fly from city to city, point A to point B to point C, not looping back, not skipping anything, not fast forwarding, just in real time to fly around the entire world and see what's out there. And right now I'm headed up the coast of Alaska, and the next couple of weeks probably over to Russia and Asia, all one leg at a time. So we're just sort of starting out on this, and I'm logging these flights as I can. So thanks for watching so far. And let me know if you have any suggestions as I leave North America, what I should see down the coast of Asia, probably to head down through Japan and China, down to Southeast Asia towards Australia. That's months and months of travel, so lots to think about, lots to plan. Right now I'm just going to admire some of this mountain scenery. I'm now coming up on about almost an hour into my flight towards Anchorage, Alaska. Pretty much on course, as you can tell by the pink line that I'm following. There seems to be a bit of wind because I keep doing course adjustments and then getting spun about 10 degrees off course, so it's not a lot of work to maintain this altitude and this heading. And we've got everything sort of set up. Once I've done my climb, and I've been holding somewhere between 9,000 and 9,500 feet as I've cruised along the coast here. Some amazing scenery. But it's just little tweaks as you're flying along. No big movements. I don't have a really complex setup. What I'm using is essentially my keyboard for some of the control, but most of my flying I'm doing using a Logitech Extreme 3D Pro joystick, which I picked up a little while ago. And it's got about 20 buttons on it and a couple different axis controls. And, you know, to make a little course adjustment like that one, really just nudging the joystick just a hair to the left or a hair to the right, and just really fine motions at this point. So I'm able to sit here and do some writing or kind of surf through Google to check out some of the locations I'm flying over while I'm flying, and you don't have to constantly be at the controls. Of course, when you're taking off or landing, it's very active flight, but for a 2 to 3 hour flight like this, I can get a lot done on other devices, my iPad or my phone, just while we're doing a nice quiet flight along the coast here. I'm just over an hour and a half into this flight, and I think I just crossed about the halfway point between my departure in Yakutat, Alaska, and my arrival in Anchorage International. That little mountain range that's jutting out ahead of me seems to be a little bit of a peninsula, and just past that, I believe Google Maps is serving me correctly, is Prince William Sound. There's going to be another big body of water that I have to fly over when I pass over those mountains just ahead. But it's been a beautiful, clear day. Some really great scenery, which is a nice shift from the last couple of flights, which have been in the clouds and the rain and the low fog.
SkyQ 4854 descend and maintain 10,000 feet.
There's some automatically generated traffic, and I guess that's live flight data. So some of these flights, like Air Alaska and a few other flights,
10,000 feet, SkyQ 4854.
some of these that they're talking to are real flights that are brought in as simulated flights into the simulation. And so if you see like a Air Alaska flight, or I think SkyCube, I'm not sure what that is, if you see one of those flights, then those are actually planes out flying in the real world, and approximately where they would be according to data. I haven't seen many other users today. I think I've only seen 2 or 3 users, which is strange because, you know, I flew through Vancouver. If you go back and check out the Vancouver video, there's literally dozens of other users flying around, and those are other players like me in the game, playing online in multiplayer mode. And yeah, so up here in the edge of Alaska towards Anchorage, maybe I'll see a few other people.
You are 20,000 feet above your assigned altitude. Descend and maintain 10,000 feet.
But right now, it's just me in the mountains. I'll check in when I'm a little closer. Just passing over that mountain range we saw earlier. Seems to be some sort of glacier flow, kind of below and ahead. I only highlight it because in my last video I flew over Glacier Bay and the glaciers were not as impressive as I'd hoped. Not in the simulation anyways. I assume in real life they're amazing. But in this one, this glacier seems to have some serious iceberg breakup right near the base. I thought that was worth having a look at. If you've never seen the base of a glacier, if you've ever been to a glacier, this one is fairly impressive. Seems like it would be in real life anyways. A little too close to do a big swoop down to get a closer look, but this was worth just taking a minute to check out. We're about 2 hours into this flight so far, and this has been a long scenic slog up the Alaskan coast. Definitely lots to see. Some beautiful reflections off the water there as we begin our crossing of Prince William Sound, I think. And if you have your resolution settings high enough, just in the horizon, in the haze of the horizon across there, sort of see a mountain range. And once we hit that, we're gonna cruise over top of that mountain range and then begin our descent into Anchorage. Got about another hour of flying to do, and I expect that, as I've seen, there's a couple more players have popped up into my display here. I think as we approach a major international airport, we might see a few more people cruising around, having a look at the scenery. But as it is, we're about 120 miles outside of Anchorage. Got quite a ways to go yet. So I don't think people are just casually venturing out this far. But you never know. Maybe there's some people who are traveling around the world too. I'm almost all the way across Prince William Sound. About 2.5 hours into this flight. Thinking probably another 45 minutes until we land. Still a beautiful, clear, sunshiny day. You can even see a little bit of the curvature of the earth. I'm up at almost 9,300 feet, 9,250. Some epic mountain ranges. We're just going to traverse this range, and on the other side of those mountains where all those players are, I assume is probably Anchorage. There's a lot of people parked at about somewhere between 112, 150 feet. I assume those folks are sitting on runways or sitting in nearby airports. And as we cross over these mountains, we'll do a descent and drop down into the city of Anchorage. Still can't get over this view. This is quite amazing. And that sun is beautiful today. So much better than the fog and the clouds and the rain I've been flying in for the last week. Real weather is fun to fly in, but you certainly don't see the same scenery. So as I approach Anchorage, just over the edge of those mountains there, those who've been following along know that I log all my actual flight time on this trip in this particular aircraft, the Cessna 172. And I've never loaded it at an airport, other than the first time when I loaded the game, the simulator. I loaded in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, and I started flying, and I did some practice flights around Alberta, always loading at the previous airport that I landed at. Took off, flew to the next location, loaded the airplane at that next airport. So I've never...
Dynasty 5238, you are 9,200 feet above your assigned altitude.
I've never loaded this game up, the simulator up, at an airport that I haven't officially landed at. And this aircraft keeps track of how long, how many hours you've logged in this particular aircraft. The game keeps track of how much time you've logged. There's a lot of air traffic around here. And so if you'll see up above that smoking prohibitive sign up in the right hand corner of the screen, we're about to switch over to a first of probably many milestones. As I cruise in, just about to roll up to 25 hours we've made on this journey so far. So if you're looking to recreate what I've done, just to get to where we're at right now, 25 hours worth of work. And while I'm looking at these instrument displays, I'll just fly off course a whole bunch. But yeah, so that's where we're at. There we go. 25 hours in this little Cessna. Thanks for flying along so far. I'll check in when I'm closer to landing. I've got about 35 miles left on this flight. As you can see, there's a little bit of cloud, low-lying cloud up ahead, right around where I think Anchorage might be. I think that guy, Killazer Spike, is parked at the Anchorage International Airport. I'm just guessing, but based on my flight data, my flight log, which I'm not exactly following right now, because I don't want to swoop over those mountains and then descend. Based on that, I think that's where the airport is. So I'll just tell you what my plan is. I've dropped my speed a little bit, so I've slowly started to descend. I've lost about 400 feet. And I'm going to drop down into this little cove or whatever it is. I looked it up, it's called Turnagain Arm. And I'm going to drop down, try and get down to about 3,000 or 4,000 feet. Do a swoop around the mountains there, hang a right underneath those clouds. And Anchorage is sort of sitting,
Lima 109er, contact Anchorage approach on 119.1.
nestled in there, and then I'll wait for clearance and
119.1
land.
for Lazy Lima 109er. Anchorage approach Lazy Lima 109er, 9,100 feet.
So,
Lazy Lima 109er, Anchorage approach, continue as planned. Altimeter 30.30.
next time we chat, we'll be a little closer, and probably thinking about a final approach. I think a lot of you would be interested to have a look at some of this beautiful mountain scenery. Just at about 3,700 feet. Lost a lot of altitude coming over those mountains you see behind us now.
Lazy Lima 109er, contact Anchorage approach on 126.4.
Going to 126.4 Lazy Lima 109er. Anchorage approach Lazy Lima 109er, 3,600 feet.
Lazy Lima 109er, Anchorage approach, continue as planned. Altimeter 30.28. Lazy Lima 109er, contact Anchorage approach on 119.1.
119.1 for Lazy Lima 109er. Anchorage approach Lazy Lima 109er, 3,500 feet.
Lazy Lima 109er, Anchorage approach, continue as planned. Altimeter 30.28.
Less than 5 miles out of Anchorage Airport. Should be getting clearance pretty soon. And we'll get a better sense of what direction we have to take this landing. Some flight clearance anytime would be nice. Landing clearance. usual, I always seem to pick the wrong runways, so I'm assuming I'm doing that again. Still no landing clearance, but if I don't hear anything, I'm just gonna drop her in and get yelled at. Here on runway 33. Basically dead stick right now. And that's it. That flight was a little over 3 hours long from Yakutat, Alaska to Anchorage International Airport. I call that a successful landing, even if I didn't get clearance to do so. But apparently everybody's still asleep up in Anchorage. Either way, thanks for flying with me today. And come back next time when I take off and start my journey across Alaska towards Russia. A couple more flights and we should be there. See you next time.